So.
Sorry.
Wait.
This is not uncomfortable, but it's very weird.
This is the thing?
This is the one.
Absolutely. And now it almost couldn't have happened in a better way.
Where do you want to be?
So it was just like,
Am I funny? Now if I go over here, am I still funny?
Better strategy.
Yeah, way better.
I never thought about that.
Yes, it worked.
I don't see it 5 years from now that you're not my most famous friend.
You really have to commit to something. Good to have something pushing you.
That's cool. That was really cool.
Yeah, it might be cool.
This is On the Cusp.
Hello, I'm Ben Greene, and welcome to On the Cusp. This week, my guest is Peter Harmon. Peter's worked as a producer for shows like Heroes of Cosplay. He's written several movies, including the recently released Love in Tokyo, and he's the author of the new book, The Happenstances at the Yellow County Community Swim and Racquet Club, The Summer Before Last. I'm not sure how you're listening to On the Cusp right now. You might be listening on SoundCloud, or maybe on iTunes, or possibly on Stitcher. The point is, there's many ways to listen to On the Cusp, and I hope you'll consider subscribing to the show in one of those ways. This week's episode is sponsored by Thai Pepper at 6219 Franklin Avenue in Los Angeles. You know, in every episode of the show, I say a bunch of nice things about Thai Pepper, but I think it's even more powerful to turn to the Yelp reviews and see what people are saying over there. Anna T writes, I came here with a bunch of my friends and we did family style, and OMG, everything was seriously good. Brittany D writes, I came for mango sticky rice and it definitely satisfied my craving. And Alice H reports, medium spicy was perfect for me and the seasoning was well done. What do you expect when it's actually the grandma cooking behind the scene? Well, Alice H, we have to agree with you. When it comes to Thai Pepper, we expect nothing less than the best. Thai Pepper. Good enough for Alice H, Brittany D, and Anna T. Good enough for me. It's Thai Pepper. So, my guest on today's show, Peter Harmon, is someone I met back when I was a production assistant for the reality TV show Intervention. Working on that show was a very mixed bag, because on the one hand, all my coworkers were really nice, and my hours weren't as crazy as they had been in other production jobs I'd had. But on the flip side, I spent a lot of my time there scanning thousands and thousands of pictures of drug addicts from back when they were kids. And when you're doing that, it's hard to do that and not have a part of your insides kind of start to die. Peter Harmon and I actually shared the same desk because I was at Intervention from 9:30 to 6:30 every day, and then Peter would come at the end of my workday and be there from 6:30 until the middle of the night. And for a while, I didn't know a lot about Peter other than the fact that he had a son, because there was a picture of his son that was on our shared desk. But over time, we had a bunch of really great conversations in the time that I was leaving work and he was arriving at work. And in those conversations, I learned that, like me, Peter is also trying to be a screenwriter. I learned that he had actually had a few movies he'd written produced for budgets of around $100,000, which I thought was really impressive. And the other thing I learned was that he's been more prolific with scripts than pretty much anyone else I've met out here. He's written a total of 16 full 90-page screenplays. 16. There's a point in this interview where I asked Peter what drove him to write such a large number of screenplays, and he has a really great answer to that question. But I won't spoil it now. I want you to listen out for it. The point is that Peter's drive out here has been pretty amazing, and I think he's an inspiring guy to listen to. Also, did I mention that he recently had his first book published? You'll get to hear us talking about that too. So let's dive in and hear about the life and LA experience of an amazing guy, my friend, Peter Harmon. So when did your book come out? It's called The Happenstances at the Yellow County Community Swim and Racquet Club, The Summer Before Last.
That's the title, yeah.
And it came out like a few weeks ago?
Came out on June 21st of this year.
Oh, that's very recent.
The first day of summer, yeah. It's been like a week or so.
Did summer just begin, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, emotionally for me, it has been a couple weeks now, but yeah, it just started on the 21st.
And how have you felt about the books coming out yet so far? What's it basically about to begin with?
Oh yeah, sure. So it's a story about a group of misfits who work at this community pool, the Yellow County Community Swim and Racquet Club. They are all sort of losers. Like, one guy just graduated high school. He's supposed to be going to college for, screenwriting. But he's never written anything before, really, in his life. So his parents think he's, having an internship over the summer that's going to propel him into film school. But instead, he's just working at the snack bar. He's the manager of the snack bar. We have another character who secretly lives in the guard shack, like the guard office of the pool. And there's just basically these people, their lives revolve around working at this pool, and they don't have much going on. So then when sort of the patriarch of the pool, this cool board member, this 60-year-old heavy metal guy, he's the glue holding these people together, and he dies in a freak accident. No spoilers.
Whoa.
And so it throws their little ecosystem out of whack. The rest of the board comes in and wants to, totally change everything. The pool is losing money. They want to spruce it up so it starts making money. They want to cater more to the city folk more than the community, and sort of ruin what these group of characters have come to love. So this group of losers has to band together and win the Tri-County Relay Race it's a swimming race at the end of the summer.
That sounds really good. What led up to you writing this book? How did you choose this topic? And
so I started writing it as a screenplay in college, basically when I was coming up on, graduating college. I was facing being graduated from college and not knowing where I was going to live, have a job, what was going to happen. So a lot of this character Charlie's feelings of, I'm out of high school, what's next? I haven't prepared for going to college or the future. I was feeling a lot of those things, but on a larger scale of, I'm about to graduate college, and then what? So I started writing the screenplay in college just with that sort of emotion behind it. Eventually got out to LA right after college and through a film program, and tried to get people to read the screenplay. And I was in a writer's group with some friends, producer of the show, Cece, some other people, potentially future guests of the show. Got notes from them, got great feedback. Actually really honed it in that group, to be honest. And so it was still a script, but no one really wants to read your script. I got it into
in the whole world.
No one wants to. I'm talking specifically to you.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm talking about myself. No one wants to read your script. I mean, I put it in festivals, screenwriting festivals, and it did okay at 1 or 2. But then my friend was going to produce it as her first movie that she was ever going to produce, and then she didn't. She got a new job, got wrapped up in other things. So I was close. We were all right, what actors are gonna be in it? Which is such a tease.
Yeah.
You start picturing it with people, what actors are gonna be in it? It wasn't that close. We shouldn't have been thinking that at all. But then
I feel like that experience of getting close happens over and over again when you live here.
It's probably the thing that happens the most. So then a couple of years ago, I was I love this story. It means a lot to me. It could be a young adult book, and I started just adapting it from my screenplay, using it as an outline. That's sort of the best outline to me that you can have.
Yeah.
It's 100% a different way of writing, but I knew the story was there because I had workshopped it a ton, and then it was just putting words behind it. And
do direct lines of dialogue from the screenplay come into the book?
Yeah, there's dialogue in there. That's one thing that can stay pretty similar. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think we'll revisit a lot of or some things we've just talked about
sure,
as
yeah.
we like make our way through your life.
Ooh.
But you were born in Maryland?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yep.
And where in Maryland?
Well,
I
actually,
know you've
no,
got a tattoo
yeah.
on you somewhere of Maryland.
Yeah, right there.
Right on your arm.
I was actually born in D.C. I lived in D.C. for a couple years, but then
Those were your first years?
Yeah, till I was like 2 or 3. Lived in D.C. By Dunbar High School. And if any listeners are
Represent.
Yeah. And then we moved to a town called Cheverly, Maryland, which I also have tattooed on my body like a crazy person. We moved to Cheverly, Maryland, and that's where I grew up until I went to college.
What were your parents doing in Washington?
My parents are both missionaries. My dad's semi-retired, but he did missions work around D.C., so like working with the homeless and outreach and things like that.
Is that how your mom and dad met each other?
Yeah. I should know the story better, but yeah, they met at sort of like a religious event, yeah.
And what was their background? Did they live somewhere before Washington themselves?
Yeah, my dad's from North Carolina. My mom was kind of...
Where in North Carolina?
Like Raleigh.
Oh,
area.
cool.
Yeah, my grandma still lives, I think, like close-ish to Charlotte, not like in rural near Charlotte, yeah. So, yeah, my grandpa worked for GE, so they kind of moved around a bunch. He was, engineer.
And your mom's family was from not North Carolina?
No, they were from, I think she was born in Chicago.
Okay.
But they moved around a bit. Eventually they moved down to San Diego. I've been visiting them in San Diego my whole life.
And what are they like just as people?
They're great. They are super supportive. But I think they've always tried to like help me manage my expectations. So like I've been like, oh, this thing is about to happen, probably when it wasn't about to happen. And they'd be like, oh yeah, that'll be cool when it happens, as opposed to like, yeah, cool, great, can't wait to hear about it. But no, just, I mean, growing up, they were always supportive and yeah.
And do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have an older brother. Yeah.
And is he similar to you, or?
We are similar in some ways. I think he's way more practical than me, but
What's evidence of that?
Well, he's an engineer. He lives in Philly. He wanted to get a good job and a steady job. He went to school at like University of Maryland, good school, and got a good job out of school. And yeah, he I don't know, knows things. He knows things about like setting up your life correctly. I'm still kind of winging it.
Were you close as kids?
We were, to a certain extent. Like, we weren't in high school at the same time. So, you know, when he was in high school, he was too cool for school. But then once I was in high school and he was in college, we really bonded, I think. I sort of credit him with maybe getting me, like, I was always interested in movies and TV to a certain extent, but he started, you know, taking me to cool movies. Like, some great theater experiences I remember were like going to The Rules of Attraction cold, like not having even seen a trailer, and just like the opening scene where there's like some backwards portions and stuff like that. I was just like, whoa, you can do this? He took me to see Adaptation, Charlie Kaufman. Crazy, great movie. Like, he would take me to see these movies I'd never heard of because, I mean, the internet was not really a thing yet, and definitely I didn't know about independent movies. But after seeing movies like that, I would do the whole thing where you go to Blockbuster and go to the independent section and get movies.
What were you like as a like maybe 6 through 10-year-old?
I feel like I was more outgoing at those ages, and then like in middle school, I hit like a slump of like, ooh, being kind of a sad sack. I don't know, maybe no one would describe me that way, but I feel
Did you feel sad?
No, I just knew most people were cooler than me. Like I was friends with like really cool dudes, still am, but I'm like friends with the same people, but they were like really cool, and I was kind of like, I don't know. They liked me though, so that was good. Yeah, I think I was outgoing, and but then I switched schools from, I grew up with a bunch of kids like up until 6th grade, then I switched schools. And it took me a little bit to find like a new solid group of friends, I feel.
Why do you think you consider yourself uncool?
Just like people were being successful with girls, and to a certain extent, and like I was having like proximity crushes on everybody.
What does that mean? That's like you're just anyone like, you get close to?
Yeah, anyone who shows you any attention whatsoever. I was like, oh, maybe they would be my girlfriend. And then they would not. I don't know. I guess I held a lot of stock in trying to get girls to like me at that point. I was doing fine in school and all that good stuff. And then in high school, it took me a couple of years to come into my own, but then like junior, senior year were really great.
What, did something happen around then that made them better?
Just like started killing it. Just like
how are you killing it?
No. Just just I could drive and make more decisions. I started shopping at the thrift store, which automatically means you're cool.
Were you having success with girls?
I had my first girlfriend when I was a junior, yeah.
And she seemed to really like you?
For like a couple weeks, yeah. Yeah. I mean, all throughout all of that, like in elementary school, like 1st grade, probably doesn't make any sense. Probably like 3rd grade, I was already doing like the morning show, like camera operator, switchboard operator. So even from that earliest age, I was like, this TV stuff is pretty cool.
Yeah, you feel like that was like the earliest sign that this might be something you wanted to go into?
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe because we didn't have a bunch of movies, I wasn't desensitized, that's not the right word, but I was still, when I started really seeing movies, I might have been more in awe of them than other people. Like, still to this day, I'm not a movie apologist, but like I find good things about movies. In high school, it happened a bunch. I would go to the movies with my friends, and we would walk out and be like, and I would be like, awesome, and they would be like, terrible. And I'd be like, I liked some things about it. They'd be like, no, that was terrible. I'd be like, and then I secretly be like, no, I liked it.
And you still feel that way? Like your bar for what makes a really good movie is a little lower than other people?
I think now I hope so. I hope so. I hope so. I don't see a ton of movies these days just because I got a lot going on. But when I do get to like sit and invest into a movie, I find stuff to like about it. If not, if I'm like, this is a waste of time, I probably won't get through it because there's just too much going on.
So your parents were missionaries. How big of a place did religion have growing up in your life?
It's still important to me. Raised, sort of non-denominational Christian. My dad was doing, mission work with the homeless in D.C. My mom worked with, pregnant teens for a while. She did that, but then she also, worked at a law firm. She did a couple of things growing up. Sometimes she was with us. Currently, she works with young adults with special needs. So they both, my dad has done mainly help with the homeless outreach pretty steadily.
Very cool.
But besides that being their occupation, we also went to church. We went to youth group. So it was a thing. Did
you go on missions yourself?
I did, yeah. When I was 13, I went to China. My parents didn't go. They were, domestic missionaries or whatever you want to say, local. But through our church, I went to China to, basically bring money and donations, things kids would need to orphanages, and just sort of like go in there. I think mainly we were there to like bring them stuff and money, but also we did, everywhere we went, we did some just sort of morale boosting kind of stuff, like having birthday parties for these kids because they don't necessarily know their birthday. And to be a 13-year-old doing that, I was basically being treated as an adult with the rest of these other people on this mission trip. Like I said, my parents weren't there. So that was very eye-opening, and I think super important to just helping me to always have more of a global outlook, that the world isn't me whatsoever. The world isn't even my family or my town or state. Like, there's a ton going on, and it's helped me to be like thankful for just anything, basically, because going to these orphanages was the worst living conditions. I mean, there's probably even worse, but these were pretty.
Was that hard for you to
terrible.
see?
Yes, it was, and especially in retrospect. Like, at the time, I was just like, your brain's not fully formed, and you're just kind of rolling around like, whoa, this exists? Like, so that all at once, on the one hand, opens your eyes to a bunch of things, but also, I couldn't totally process it. But then when I was 15 and 17, I did similar things. I went to Hungary to like put on a sports camp for like the local Hungarians, also like sort of a impoverished little area. Like, there's nice parts of Hungary, of course, and China as well. But we were specifically going to impoverished places to just sort of, help as we could. Bring donations was a big thing of it. The Hungary trips, we had a sister church over there, so we would help, hook up their church with like some soccer balls and stuff like that.
These sound like good things to be doing.
They were cool to me.
Did your faith, or absolute acceptance that God exists ever waver along, when you were a kid or in the last 10 years?
Yeah, probably when I was in middle school, just going through my little strife, my little emo period. I think I did sort of have the struggle of, oh, God's not real kind of thing. But then that was sort of a front that I put on myself.
What is your personal evidence that you've seen that God does exist?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I really should have kept a log of just different things. There have been many things that have just been, proof to me that probably even if I could remember it and had documented it, I could say it now and it wouldn't necessarily change anyone's mind.
You can take a second. I just want to hear one example.
Yeah. I mean, really, a lot of my life has worked out in a way that it's more than, it couldn't be more than, it's more than a coincidence. I mean, if we're going to go into my sort of trajectory at a certain point, just how that all has worked out has been strange. Okay, so I went to school in Baltimore. My directing teacher was a producer for the show Intervention. But he would fly back to Baltimore to teach our Saturday class. It was random that I was in the class, random that he was the teacher and also a producer at the same time. Then when I got out here, I looked him up. He got me a job on Intervention. I met you on Intervention. We're doing this podcast. I mean, that's a small sort of just connection example, and anyone could be like, well, that's just that's the way the world works. Things are connected. But I've had, many of those.
So I think that it's a good answer. That basically, as we keep doing the podcast, I bet other things will come up that just go to show that your life has worked out in a cool way. That
I like to think that there are connections, and yeah, that was sort of a base level example, but that's the one that I thought of on this evening after a long day of work.
That's very good. That's good enough for me. So, if I'd asked you in high school, what are you gonna do when you grow up? What would you have said then?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would have been like, I hope that I write movies, because even in high school, so in high school, I was very involved in the television production program that we had at our science and tech school.
It was a specialty school?
Yeah. I mean, you had to test into the science and tech program of it. It was also just, a neighborhood school where if you were in that neighborhood, you would go. But then if you, were in the science and tech program, or, you were on a German transfer, like you wanted to take German in high school and your home school, your neighborhood high school didn't have German, you could go. So I was in the science and tech program because the high schools in my county were not great. Well, to be fair, just my neighborhood school wasn't great. I lived in Cheverly, which is a cool town that's sort of in the midst of the hood a little bit. Like Prince George's County doesn't have a great reputation. I think it's getting better. It's right outside DC. I loved it, but some people didn't. Some people had issues with it. I thought it was cool. But so my homeschool wasn't great, and I was able to test into this school and get into this science and tech program. And sort of the track I started going down was this sort of TV productions track, which I originally took because my friend was more interested in it, and I wanted to take a class with him, my friend Kenny. And I started taking the class, and even the first day, the teacher did one of those speeches where it was like, we only have so many cameras, we only have so many, editing stations. If you're not serious about this class, I don't want you to take it. You can take a different elective. So I was like, oh, I should probably get out of this class. I was like, but I stayed in because there were
That's
people.
a good thing.
There were people that were way less into it than me, even in my.
Okay, that was your gauge.
Yeah. There were people, I don't know, just straight up writing on the table, just like.
And you were making student films in this course?
I think it started out just doing basic camera exercises with the cameras that you put the VHS tape in. We were in the modern age, but we were still using old ass cameras. So I was in the TV productions sort of whole thing, and we started just doing camera exercise. I got more involved with it. I took TV too. I took all the classes. I eventually was sort of an in-school intern, which was just helping everybody with their little videos. I would shoot videos for the school. I learned to edit on the linear thing where you push the little robot boobs back and forth and select in, out, and it goes through 2 VCRs and puts it on the other tape, and there's a ton of snow and it looks terrible. But they also had non-linear stuff, but our school didn't have, Final Cut, or we had something called a Casablanca.
You didn't have Avid?
We didn't have Avid, no, we didn't. But so we would, make our little VHS tapes. And so then I got an internship where I would go down to DC and do whatever. I'd put together their furniture, or I would whatever.
Whose furniture?
Just my internship. I was on a high school sports show.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got involved with that. And then senior year was at a point where I was taking 4 credits of television production, which was BS, and I could do my own thing. I actually could do my own projects though, so I did make a couple little short films. Do you remember the Volkswagen commercial where the guy's seen the convertible for the first time? That came out probably when we were in high school. Yeah. So he's walking through his life and his clothes are changing, and there's the ELO song Mr. Brightside. Right. It's boop, 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 and his clothes are changing. Well, I did a version of that, not with the Volkswagen, but it was about a girl. And
her clothes are changing?
No, mine were. And then I saw her and I was like, oh, I can live life now. Just like the guy in that commercial was like, oh, I saw this convertible. Now my life is solved.
So you were putting some feelings you had into this video.
Totally.
And where'd you end up going to college?
I went to Towson University in Baltimore.
And you did a film production program?
Yeah.
And how was that?
I think in hindsight even, it was cool. I learned the Avid editing system in my editing class, which I use every single day. Which
you were no longer using these linear editing.
No,
things.
no longer the robot boobs.
Okay.
If you look up linear editing, you'll see what I mean. I know it sounds weird, but yeah, you can. People know what I'm talking about.
Even just hearing you make that sound effect.
Yeah. The total mental picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I met friends there too that I still collaborate with to a certain degree, still keep in touch with. There's a guy who gave me a quote for my book that I collaborated with a bunch, who's a filmmaker these days.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And
I met my wife in college.
you did? You met your wife?
I met Ash.
So how did that happen? Did you date before her in college?
Did I date other people before her? I looked around. Yeah.
You looked around, but then it didn't take too long to find her?
She had a boyfriend initially, but then we didn't meet till like second semester of freshman year.
And you got rid of that boyfriend?
She did, and then she was like, I think her attitude was like, I'm gonna have the college experience. I'm not gonna have. Her boyfriend was still in high school.
Okay.
She was like, I'm gonna have the college experience. I'm not gonna have like this high school boyfriend. And then a couple months later, it was like, oh, but actually I'm dating Pete. I mean, it took a while. It took a while for us to really like become boyfriend and girlfriend. Like, she fell in love with Pete. And I was interested for
Pete
sure.
is you.
Yeah. She fell in love, but I can't say she fell in love with me on the podcast. That sounds weird. She fell in love with me quickly, it seemed, and I did have feelings for her for sure. But I was guarded. That girlfriend that I was making movies about in high school cheated on me, so I was bummed out for a while.
Okay.
In the girl scene, so it took me a little while to like build up that bond with Ash. But then since we started dating, we've been together since then. So college was good for a lot of reasons. Learned Avid and met my wife.
What's your
two things that factor heavily in my life?
How does what kind of presence is Ash in your life, like day to day?
Day to day, calming presence. Supportive, totally supportive. She's
100% behind you in your dream and going for your dream.
Yeah, I mean, to both of us, I've exceeded our expectations, and we just keep dreaming even after this. Like, you asked me, like in high school, you asked me if you were to ask my high school self what I would be doing. I'd be like, no, I don't know. Hopefully not working at Blockbuster. But even if you were to ask me 5 years ago, what are you going to be doing? I would have had no idea. Like, definitely I wouldn't have said I'm going to be a producer and a author. I would have probably still been like, hopefully a screenwriter. I'm still like that. I'm still hopefully going to be a screenwriter. I mean, I am a produced screenwriter as well, sort of. But even 5 years ago, I wouldn't have known that I was going to be where I'm at these days. Do
you credit her for helping you to get as far as you have?
If my future divorce judge is listening, no, I'm just kidding. No, I totally do. The dedication in the book is a lot. I mean, it's just a couple lines, but it's to her. I mean, she reads all my stuff and says, yes, this is a thing. When sometimes I'm like, is this a thing? This isn't a thing.
Does she give you notes?
Not really. That's not really her scene. I mean, she'll proofread and but it's mainly encouragement. Like, I have literally everybody else in my life to give me notes. Like, my job is 100% getting notes. I mean, there's a little bit of stringing things. There's a little bit of pre-production. That's not the right word, but there's a little bit of getting my scenes together, my shows together ahead of time. But then once at a certain point, it's like all notes. Like, so just like today, I was just answering notes all day. So and you know, out here, I'm sure a lot of people write their script and send it to their 5 closest contacts that can maybe pass it along, right? That's a thing that everyone does. But usually it's not that your thing gets passed along, it's that your closest contacts are like, oh, here's a bunch of notes, here's how it could be better.
Yeah.
And then you do those and the cycle continues. So as far as giving notes, like, your third act is like, you know, it's not as epic as, she doesn't do that. She is like, did you mean to put is instead of it? And and hey, that one thing was great. This will be an
I think that ends up being really helpful.
Yeah. I mean, it makes me not just be like, well, I just wasted a long ass time.
Yeah. So college was good because you met your wife.
Yeah.
And good otherwise in general.
Oh, hey, if we want to get a little juicy.
I do want to get juicy.
Yeah. Oh, I probably did actually block this out, but we can talk about this. All right. So I came from, like, growing up, very diverse. I played basketball, mostly black kids on the team. Mostly, my school was predominantly black, like always. That's just what I was more comfortable with, was diversity. And like, I still love rap music. I still covet like Jordans. Like, someday I'm just gonna buy myself a bunch of pairs of Jordans, like the Jordan 12s. I still like.
That would be success.
I look at them on the internet. I'm like, when I can buy some Jordan 12s, I'll know I've made it. Which, you walk down the street and every like 5-year-old in certain neighborhoods are wearing the latest Jordans. I just can't let myself do that. I have my own kid. I buy him better clothes than myself. But anyway, sidetrack. So diversity was a big thing growing up. But then when I got to Towson, it was in Baltimore. It was diverse to a certain extent. But it was way more white people. I'm white, by the way. It was way more white people than I was used to. It's like frat culture. I didn't know anything about like frat culture. Like, I was like, hey, these are the people that are parodied in movies. Like, people do actually act like this. Like, fraternities really act like the movies that you watch. And to me, I was just like, look at these stereotypes that don't exist when I would see frats in movies. Yeah. But then I went to college and I was like, no, they do exist. Like when Santa saw the M&Ms, he was like, they do exist. So exactly. Frats, man, I did not dig that scene. But as a freshman, that's where parties are. That's, people are like getting involved with frats. And that's like, I by no means was going to get involved in Greek life, but you end up going to these parties where there are frat bros. So I went to the wrong frat bro gathering, and like me and my buddy from one of these best friends from home that I still hang out with, we were just like being us and being goofy, like jackasses, and I got really beat up. Like,
what? Why?
Just like having dumb humor with my friend and like probably saying stupid stuff. But by no means did I deserve the beating that I got. Like, I just got punched a bunch of times in the face to the point I had 2 black eyes. I have a picture on my Facebook where I'm like, a day or 2 later, I'm eating an ice cream cone just with like full raccoon eyes.
Whoa.
And like, I got beat up, and then I should have called the cops. I didn't, but I got driven home. I went to sleep. Maybe should have even gone to the hospital. Went to sleep. Got up and just had horrible black eyes. I had the thing where like the blood is in your eye. And just like, I had to go to class like that for a couple weeks.
Yikes.
Yeah, I was taking like a poetry, maybe not a poetry class, but like a fiction class, something. I was taking some kind of class in college, and there was like a real thoughtful professor. Like, And so I rolled in there with my big black eyes, and he was like, what happened to you? And I was like, I got beat up at a party. And he was like, why'd they beat you up? I was like, I don't know. And he like got really sad and just stood at the front of the class like just pondering. I felt bad for making him sad.
Yeah, but it happened.
It happened. It's terrible.
So was LA a given after college, or do you think about moving other places?
You know, a lot of things, like if I were a character in a screenplay, probably people would be like, that character is not active enough. Things just happen to him, which that makes great movies when it's done correctly. But I went to the closest film school so I could be near my friends. And, I did work at Blockbuster in college for a bit. And so, in my down the line dreams, I was like, yeah, live in LA, be a screenwriter. That's going to happen, I'm sure. Like, all I have to do is keep living life and that'll happen. So I didn't have plans to go to LA, really. But then I think it was my parents heard of this program. You come out to LA for a semester. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. A film program in LA. And I was like, I'll definitely do that. And maybe then I'll live in LA. And then I started making that my plan.
So, and that program was pretty good when you did it?
Well, a lot of things went on in that program. My internship through that program was at John Malkovich's production company, Mr. Mudd, where I was the intern to the assistant, who was a gentleman named Kyle Fried.
Who was my friend.
Yeah. And he was in that writers group where I honed the happenstances. So that was going on. Got that internship, which I was a really bad intern. I mean, I could do coverage and stuff, but I still don't know how to work one of those phones where you do more than one thing and hold and transfer and things like that.
Right, I remember we were both agitated when we had to do that intervention.
Yeah, it's like, hey, Peter A. Peter A, cover that phone. Okay, I got something else I'm doing.
Peter H can't do it.
Yeah, Peter H, no go. But somehow, even though maybe he would tell it differently that I wasn't a terrible intern, but, I just wasn't on top of the calendar or any of the administrative things that you need to be on top of to be a good assistant. We still became friends through just hanging out during that internship. And then later he was like, hey, be in this writers group. And I met a good, solid group of friends, including your betrothed. She came to a few. I don't know if she was like one of the regular members, but she definitely came to a few. And yeah, I mean, the writers group was just a bunch of good writers who probably we'll be hearing from soon, hopefully.
Yeah, this is just a retrospective of that writers group.
Yeah.
This whole show.
Yeah. We should do like a writers group pod. Like, remember way back when we were at the farmer's market. So that was going on. Also, that program, each semester they produce like 4 or 5 short films. They produce short films, just a couple of them. They pick directors from the class. They pick writers from the class. And you get to make a short film with a budget. For the first time in my life, it wasn't just like cobbling together, who do I know that will act? Who do I know will run camera? So I was like, I'm going to try and be a director. I'm going to try and be a writer. I'm going to try and get in one of the big positions on one of these films. So I submitted a script to be a writer. I submitted my directing reel, which was, just chopped up shorts that I had done at Towson in Baltimore. And for whatever reason, I got picked to direct one of the films. It wasn't my script, but I wrote on it, and it was a cool little script about a high school nerd at a dance playing his Game Boy, and then he has a little moment with a girl. So obviously I couldn't relate to that at all. But yeah, so it was a cool little high school thing. And when we were in pre-production, I was like, I'm in LA. I have, just maybe $1,000 budget or something like that. But I was like, I want it to have good actors in it. Like, it's going to be shot, I don't know, in some room and we'll get some lights in there. That's not the hard part. I want, like, good actors in there. So Facebook was relatively new, and it wasn't what it was now where, people sort of, like, actors have their actor page and they have, like, a hidden private page, or however you could just kind of contact people. So I contacted Clark Duke.
Oh, wow.
Who's now in Hot Tub Time Machine.
Yeah. From The Office, too.
Yeah, and then he was in Clark and Michael. He was just George.
I love that show.
He was just Michael Cera's friend. So I was like, I'm going to get Michael Cera's friend in this. I messaged him. He was like, no, I can't do that. Because he was probably doing, like, the show Greek, or the show that you almost were a big star on. He was like, no. But anyway, so that's just an example of how times have changed with the old Facebook. That was only a couple years ago. I'm not super old. And then through IMDb Pro, I emailed Steve Holt. Justin Grant Wade is his real name. I emailed...
From Arrested Development.
Yeah, sorry. I probably emailed his manager or something. And so one night I was just driving down around LA, still in the program, still in pre-production. A couple weeks later, going to a friend's house, and I got a call and was like, hey, this is Justin's manager. I was like, who? Justin Grant Wade, you sent me an email about being in your film? I was like, yeah. Pulled over into like a Vaughn's parking lot. I was like, so I have Justin in the movie. Well, and so I got just Steve Holt. I got Steve Holt to act in my movie.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then I shot this short, and he came and played like the bully kind of guy, and it was awesome. Like, Arrested Development had only been off the air for a year or two. Just even meeting him at this little restaurant to talk about the script, and like he came in with a goatee, and I was like, it's high school, you gotta shave your goatee. Like, I told Steve Holt to shave his goatee.
And he did it?
Yeah. Yeah, so I just got to direct this movie with Steve Holt in it, and it turned out well. And that leads to my next thing, but I'll wrap up this story. But it turned out well, and it was cute and funny. And I have copies of it. It used to be on the net, but I think the link doesn't work anymore. But it was a good little short. I mean, it was cute. So we have a screen for those shorts that the school produces, and mine plays. And I'm biased, but mine was the best.
Awesome.
Yeah, mine was the best. Has Steve Holt in it. And then afterwards, a producer came up and was like, hey, you did Jasper. That was the name of the movie. I was like, yeah. She was like, we should do a meeting. Or whatever she said, probably take a meeting. Whatever slang it was. And I was like, yes, we should. We should. I was like, going back to Maryland to graduate and then move my stuff back out here. But yeah, I'll look you up. Swapped numbers, etc., etc. Probably shouldn't have told her all that. Probably should have just been like, yeah, I'm pretty busy, but then in like a month, let's do something. Once I get my other projects, I'm in the middle of some projects. Probably should have said that. So when I did, I went home. I don't know. I just went home to get my stuff to come back out here because I had gotten an apartment lined up. And, I had a couple people that I knew, like the aforementioned directing teacher / intervention producer. I knew a couple people. I mean, I really just knew him. I just knew. And a couple of alumni were staying in LA for that film program. Little base. So I was coming back out here. When I got back out here, I think I was even in the U-Haul with my dad driving cross country, like calling like, so I'll be in town. I mean, we should do a meeting Tuesday? And then they're like, yeah. So I went into this meeting not really knowing anything about what was going on, but I walk in, they had an office, they had their posters of their movies up on the wall, and it was like African American religious movies. So it would be like, I don't know how detailed I want to get because I might not talk super great, but it was like Pastor so-and-so doing whatever, and like the family dinner, like just different religious family themed movies. And I was like, all right, cool. And I met with the producer and she was like, so, yeah, we want you to write some movies for us. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that.
That's incredible.
Just immediately, I was like, yeah, I can do that. Even it didn't take until a couple phone calls later when I was like, hey, are you gonna pay me to write these movies? Like just in the room. In the room, I was just like, yes, I will definitely do that. And my reasoning was like I said, I grew up in a diverse area, went to church, went to some black churches growing up. I was like, and really writing, you should be able to write anything.
When you said you went to some black churches, like that was your main church for a while?
No. Like I would attend a bunch of different churches. I did have an internship at a black church, actually, running camera.
So that turned out to be good research.
Totally, yeah. See, everything sort of happens for a reason. You build your experiences and they help you throughout life. So I was like, yeah, I can do that. And we started talking about, they were like, all right, well, start working on this. I did a pastor movie and I did a Christmas movie first. But they were like, all right, start working on these movies. And I just did. I just wrote them really quickly. They paid me hardly anything whatsoever.
One was Walked by Faith?
No.
So that
was down the line.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of them was like that dinner movie?
Yeah.
What was it called?
It was called Johnson Family Christmas Dinner. Okay, so we are going to get specific.
Yeah, we can. I would like to. Unless you don't want to.
No, we can get specific. I had a big issue with that movie. I mean, besides the fact that it was very low budget. I don't want to talk too disparagingly about like the quality of it because I think the script for it was good, and you know, on a low budget, you do what you can, whatever. So I'm not even.
When we're saying low budget, we mean like $100,000 movie.
Yeah, around that, maybe a little less. Calling in favors, etc. Just like.
And were you getting paid?
Yeah.
Some amount.
Yeah, you know the WGA minimum.
That was it.
It was less than 1% of that.
Okay.
So to give you a ballpark. All right, so.
But the incredible thing of writing like a movie that's going to have $100,000 budget.
Literally my first job in LA out of college that I got paid for was writing a feature-length movie.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, it was crazy. So I was like, it's only up and up for me. I was like, I'll write this movie, and then I'll write bigger movies and bigger.
Yeah, the budgets will just climb.
Yeah, totally. That's exactly.
The first will be $100,000. The next one will be $1 million.
Yeah, and my percentage of
net proceeds will grow.
Will just yeah. There's nowhere to go from there but up. So well, let me just say my issue with that movie real quick. So I'm watching the movie. I'm skipping ahead a little bit. The movie comes out direct to DVD. VOD wasn't a huge thing quite yet. It existed, but it wasn't what it is today. Where even like, you know, they'll do day and date movies where they'll put big movies in the theater and VOD. This was not really what was going on. So direct to DVD had a stigma, and maybe rightly so. So mine was a direct to DVD movie, and I'm watching it, and all of a sudden, there's like it's a Christian family Christmas movie, and all of a sudden there's some super offensive stuff about people with special needs, which my wife works at an inclusive school that has kids of all, you know, abilities. My mom still works with kids with young adults with special needs. So I'm watching this like, this is the worst thing that I can imagine.
Did they just put that in after the fact?
Yes, it had nothing to do with the script. It was like, hey, this movie is only 79 minutes long and we need to push it over the 80-minute mark. So go improvise this super offensive joke scene. Like, it's almost like a street joke. I feel like I've heard it before, but they just put it in this movie. So I'm watching it and I'm just like, no, this is the worst. And it to the point that even though I'm, have no track record, first or second screenplay, I wrote 2 really close together and they produced them really close together. So I'm not sure which, this or the past or movie. So, but anyway, I don't have any clout, but I go at this producer like, hey, you owe me an apology. This is terrible. Like, this is the worst thing. I don't want my name to be associated with this, which there wasn't a huge risk of it like blowing up and like me getting in trouble, anything like that. But even on the off chance that I ever run into anyone who sees it, they're like, wow, you're a semi-hateful person to this one group of people.
Yeah.
Like,
what did this group of people do to you?
Yeah, exactly. Why did you write that horrible joke? So I was pretty devastated about that. That was a big bummer.
So after you wrote that letter to that woman, she apologize to you?
She left the company and I was working with sort of a more higher up guy.
Okay.
He did send back a letter, he did send back an email, like an apology. Like, we didn't mean anything by it. We know it's an antiquated word, whatever. Just some BS like, hey, I don't actually care. Shut up.
Right. Did your relationship with this company keep up?
It suffered for a while. I did eventually write some more movies for them because they apologized and because I went in like, hey, if you're gonna do something like that, let me know so I can say don't do that, or I don't know, just give me any sort of input.
But
like,
there was a bunch of stuff happened between writing those movies and your next movies.
I wrote 2 movies and then a year or so passed and I wrote 2 more movies for them. I wrote 4 movies for them over the course of a couple of years.
So one of those was Walk by Faith.
Walk by Faith 2, After the Honeymoon. That's actually the one I
watched it with you.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it was really good.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
That's not the one with the farting scene.
Oh, that's the one with the farting scene.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was like the big con.
Yeah, in fact, if you're listening to this and you want to see that farting scene, hit me up. It's on YouTube. I'll find it so I can have it chambered for like people like,
how can people contact you?
Oh, at Peter L. Harmon on Twitter.
Okay, good.
Or my phone number is 818. Just kidding.
And what was the other one that wasn't Walk by Faith?
Nora's Hair Salon 3, Sheer Disaster, which the first 2 played on BET. I was so hopeful that the third one was going to play on BET. That would have honestly been a dream come true.
Yeah.
Which, it's still not, it's still hopefully going to happen. I would love, maybe not that movie, but maybe my next one.
So did those movies do anything for your career by coming out? Feels like they should have.
Yeah, I had the illusion that, like, once you get a produced movie, you can just be like, hey, agents, represent me. So, in that period, I sent out query letters, things like that, to no avail. But they did actually, since I'm a produced screenwriter, I've been able to get other writing jobs off that. So I wrote a script for another independent producer that didn't get made, but it's a fine script, and maybe she'll give it back to me at some point if she has no intention of making it. And then I also wrote, I got in contact with a producer who shot a movie in Tokyo.
Love in Tokyo. That I was writing
a lot during my lunch breaks at Intervention.
That was what was happening on that computer.
Yeah.
And while you were writing these movies, pretty much the whole time, did you have that job at Intervention?
So yeah, there's always been sort of a parallel double life going on. There's been my writing life, and then I've worked also in the reality TV realm, so that's another parallel story. We can go back to like coming out of college
Yeah, well, you bring us through the reality side of your life.
Yeah, so I took that directing class, met that connection producer of Intervention, came out here, had a lunch with him. I was like, hey, looking for a job. I was like being an extra on stuff. I was doing the LA first land in LA thing of being an extra, trying to temp, writing Black Christian movies. That's a thing.
All the things that everybody does.
Yeah, we all do that, right? But so I went to lunch with this directing teacher who still worked at Intervention. And I was like, yeah, I'm doing a couple things, looking for a job though, for, more steady thing. He was like, we don't really have anything. I mean, we have the worst job. I was like, yeah, what's that? He was like transcribing. I was like, yeah, I'll do that. I don't know what that is. I'll do that. He's like, okay, I'll give you the contact and set you up. So transcribing reality TV footage is, a lot of time it's for interviews. You play the interview, you type what everyone's saying. So I started doing freelance reality TV footage transcription as my job, making about as much money as I got paid for that first screenplay, aka not a lot.
And for at least Intervention, you're hearing interviews with family members of drug addicts, right?
Totally.
So is that draining at all to just because it's a little bit of a sad subject matter?
Yes, very much so. And Intervention is different because they don't just do the interviews, they do the scene material as well. They do the raw footage. So I was transcribed, you get an interview, that's an easy day. But most of the time you're doing scene work or raw footage. And a drug addict isn't the most intelligible breed of person. I'm watching, I'm transcribing a lot of footage of them just using drugs. It's really weird and sad. And, a lot of them don't have great family structures. That seemed to be a trend. I don't know. But, so I'm watching just people yell at each other and be so ugly to each other. And, but I got to make my own hours. I got to go on meetings with the production company that was making my movies and making me sad also. Because they were putting horrible jokes in my movies. But, so I did get to have a lot of flexibility so I could try and write. So I got to write a bunch in there. Eventually, I was a good transcriber, and they bumped me up to logging footage, which is easier than transcribing. Logging, you're just watching, you're putting what's going on in an Excel document with time codes. It's data entry for the most part. It's kind of helpful in scene action in screenplays because you're like, so-and-so is doing this, and you're trying to say it just in a little Excel box. You're trying to be concise. I look for the good in things. I'm like trying, yeah.
Michael S. does drugs.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm like, I try and look for the positivity in it. Like, yeah, I'm doing the scene action for this as a job. So I'm logging, but it was at night. I started working the night shift, which still, I was like, great. Log at night, write and take meetings and stuff during the day, which around this time, I was getting married. My wife was a teacher before we were married and still is a teacher and was a teacher then. And like one of her students, her dad was a manager, but mainly he managed like rappers and not writers. He had never managed a writer before, but he took me on. We didn't sign any paperwork or anything, but he took me on and started trying to get me meetings and things, just kind of like with his contacts. And so I met a couple cool people. So I was like, all right, so I'm just like gonna meet these people, write these scripts, just have my little night job, and then I'll be able to get out of this night job, and it'll be great. It'll be the story of the guy who worked at night and then had this meeting and then, was a professional, whatever, writer, a screenwriter. That was going to be my origin story. Which that kind of segued into I work at night. I'm not freelance necessarily anymore, so I sort of know that I'll have a paycheck every week. I've been married for a little bit. I can work at night, and we can have a kid, and I can take care of the kid during the day. What a perfect scenario. Like my wife, she's a teacher. She has very set hours. She'll come home, swap the kid. I'm working at night, come back, wake up, take care of the kid. And so we did that. We actually did that. And it was crazy. Like, I really don't have a great memory at all of that time period. Like, there was just a lot of not that much sleep. And
You mean your memory is shady, or you
shady.
don't? Right.
Yeah.
But you do remember it positively.
Yeah. From what I remember.
It was hard.
It was hard, but it was great. And, like, it was kind of cool. Like, I was the daytime sort of primary caregiver to my son, and that was awesome. Not a lot of people get to do that. But also it was way too much. So I started working at night, taking care of my son during the day. I still somehow found time to write, though. I mean, a lot of people find excuses for not writing. I still was able to write during that time period. I mean, it wasn't necessarily whatever. I still put, words on pages.
Well,
I didn't fall
I feel
off.
like you're one of the people I know who's like just written the most. There's like a number of screenplays you've written, right? Like, how many screenplays have you written at this point?
Well, let me just say that I've gotten 5 produced, and I sold another one. I mean, these were all for not a lot of money, but I've written at least 6 screenplays, and then I've probably written 10 more at least on top of that.
So you've had 6 produced and written 10 other screenplays that
Feature
have been
length.
unproduced.
Yeah, feature length, and then I've written
Like 90-page screenplays.
Yeah.
And then you've also written pilots?
I've written a couple pilots, and I wrote a spec, Up All Night, that show Up All Night with Will Arnett. Great show. I super identified with it because he was sort of the stay-at-home dad while his wife went and worked on the sort of Oprah-esque TV show.
So that's a staggering number of screenplays. That's like more than anybody I've met out here. And I'd love to ask, what do you attribute that work ethic to that's made you be able to write literally thousands upon thousands of pages of story?
I really want to be a screenwriter. I really do. And people might say, you are a screenwriter, you have produced movies. And hopefully that when Love in Tokyo comes out, people will enjoy it. But like the first 4 movies were low budget, direct to DVD, and I'm proud of them to a certain extent, except for that one that I already discussed. I'm proud of them to a certain extent, but that's not professional. You're a screenwriter. I feel like that's still hobby territory, because my day job is producing reality TV, which is a hell of a day job and a great day job. But I want my day job to be screenwriting. And yeah, I've written a bunch because I have a lot of stories to tell.
That's fantastic. So how did you go from being a logger to a producer of reality?
Yeah, so even when I was a logger, I wasn't super interested in reality TV. I was like, I'm a logger. That's just my steady paycheck. I'm a writer. So I wasn't super interested in the ladder of what jobs in reality TV were at all. So even when I was a logger, I didn't know the name of what my current job is. I'm a post-production story producer. I'm a story producer currently. I worked for story producers to a certain extent. I didn't know what their job title was.
Right.
I was just like, I don't know, they're the writer of the show.
You didn't care that much.
No, I didn't, because I was trying to do...
Right, like I didn't care.
Yeah. And you still don't.
No, I did.
You continue to not care. I made it my beeswax to care. Yeah, so no, I didn't know what a story producer was, but eventually through intervention, they liked me. They my son got to a certain age where he was starting to go to daycare. And I was like, I'll give this working during the daytime thing a shot. So I made sort of a lateral move from logger to production assistant. But even just getting in the office very soon, I was the story assistant, which how reality TV works. There's the field that goes out and shoots it. There's post-production that puts it together. And there's like the story department, there's editorial. So I was like, the story department seems cool to me. You're still telling stories. You have less to work with than a blank page, but you're putting things together and trying to make sense of it. So I was like, yeah, I'll go into the story department. They made me the story assistant. And it was a fine job. And then intervention ended, which now it's back, which is weird. But it ended for all of us, and I got a little bit existential. I was like, oh man, I got a son, and I don't know what other jobs there are. Like, are there story assistant jobs? I don't know. I had been working for intervention for several years. I hadn't had to look for a job because I was just like,
right,
I'll keep doing what intervention wants me to do.
Your entire life post-college.
Yeah. I was like, I'll be their transcriber, I'll be their logger, I'll be their PA, I'll be their stories. I'll just keep doing whatever they want me to do because I will get my paycheck, and then I'll continue to grind hard writing my Black Christian movies, etc.
This is all the way up to like March 2012.
Yes. And at a certain point around that time, I began to figure out how it works. There are producers. That's a job. You basically prep footage for editors, then you work with editors, and you have supervising and executives who are giving you notes, etc., etc. So I was like, okay, that's how it works. I don't know how to do any of that. I took Avid in college, but I haven't used it in however many years, 3-4 years. So I was like, I'm screwed. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. So I was unemployed for a little bit. I did some freelance logging, fell back on that logging stuff. And then, here's another coincidental story. I saw a job listing on a job listing site, and I was like, oh, I could do that. Like, it was the first job I had seen on the job listing site. I was like, I could do that. It's a story assistant. I've been a story assistant. So I applied for it. And then it got taken down. I was like, oh, they must have filled it. And then Joe Mactasy called me up. I was like, hey, I just referred you to another intervention alum for this story assistant job. I was like, was it for this and was it about this? He was like, yeah. How'd you know? I was like, I just applied for that on the internet. And then I got the call about that job and got that job.
Amazing.
I went into the interview and they were like, do you know Avid? I was like, yeah, I took that in college. I'm always 100% honest with everybody.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I took that in college. And then the current story assistant, I was like, hey, what do you do? He's like, just in, out, pull the thing, look for, here's this script sync, you look for bytes for people. It's easy. I was like, all right, I'll do that. And then in my interview, I was like, I'm a storyteller, I'm a writer. I think I would be good at this. To me, it was a huge job. It was the first job that I was like interviewing for. But to people in reality TV, you switch jobs every couple of months.
Right.
They were like, no big deal. Oh, we'll hire this kid. Who cares? He won't hurt. We have producers and we have editors.
Yeah.
This guy won't hurt the flow. So I got in there. That very first show that I was assisting on, at a certain point, they were like, we're behind schedule, we're over budget, you're going to produce an episode. So my very first story assistant job, I produced, it turned out to be a couple episodes. And then I started and that's been really recent actually. Like, intervention ended whenever, like March of 12. And it's a little after March of 15. It's been a couple years.
Yeah.
And in that time, I've been a story assistant, I've been a story associate producer, and like now I'm full-fledged story producing on a network television show. It's a reality show. But it's crazy. Again, like 5 years ago, I didn't know the story producer. I didn't know that was a thing. So throughout, I've had this these parallel hustles that I've been working really hard on, both trying to be a writer of film and or television, and just coming up through these reality TV ranks. Oh, also I wrote a book, which is another thing I never thought I was going to be able to do.
And would that be a path you'd be just as happy taking if like this young adult, for young adults of all ages book became a huge success and that doors open there? Would you be just as happy to become a novelist?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's been like a week or two of having this book out there, and I love everything about it. People have already read it and are talking to me about it, and like my mother-in-law was like asking me questions about it, and like I was like, oh, those are good questions. I actually have to think about those. Like, she was getting into the characters, getting into the story. I mean, my ultimate goal is to be able to write the screenplay and the book, like option the book, turn it into a movie, write the screenplay.
That would be amazing.
That's, ultimate dream. But yeah, I mean, yeah.
What's your biggest fear for life out here? You've had all these good things happen that don't happen for a lot of people. Produced more movies than somebody your age usually has, and have a lot of exciting leads. But like, when you are most pessimistic, what does it look like?
Even in between reality TV show jobs, you get scared. I mean, as I'm building my network, it's not as, hard to get the next job, but still, your job lasts for a couple months, and then as you're wrapping up one job, you're trying to find the next. And I do have a wife. I have a 4-year-old son, and my wife is pregnant currently. So a big fear is, that work dries up or something like that. My wife is a teacher. That's a steady job. She's at an awesome school. But if we were just on her income, we'd have to make some life changes. But yeah, that's a big fear. I mean, as far as like being a failure in life, like honestly, with this, I think I said earlier, I mean, I'm already beyond my expectations for myself with like this book, and I have movies made. I would be really sad in general in life if I don't get to make like a big movie, or I would love to write another book. I would be sad if I didn't get to do that. But just being like a great member of my family is important. So even if it's like not necessarily working in TV, but still being able to provide for my family, that's important to me. So biggest fear would just be like, I don't know, not being able to find work, being a loser to my family. But I'm a relatively hard worker. I feel like I could do other things besides produce TV.
And you are optimistic for what the future holds.
I try to be, yeah.
My friend Kyle Bossman has asked that I do more things in these episodes of On the Cusp that are kind of snapshots of where you're at right now.
Yeah. I could see that. Yeah, listening to the eps. Yeah, it only sort of comes around at the end of what's actually going on. What kind of if you were if you were making this show and you wanted to it's all based on the premise of that this would be a really interesting if Peter Harmon is pretty super famous 30 years from now, this is going to be very interesting. What would be an interesting thing to find out from super famous Peter Harmon? A moment in time in the past? Or my life currently as a snapshot?
Your life your feelings as your feelings about your career right now, your feelings about life right now.
Yeah. Okay. So like listening to this, I'll be like, oh, look at that starry-eyed young man who thought he had the world ahead of him, and then so it could be on that way. Like I'm a big alcoholic in 10 years, or
might be,
or it could be I'm making movies and stuff like that, and I'm looking back on it like that.
One way or another, it's interesting.
I mean, for the past several years, I've been overdoing it to a certain extent. As a logger, it's not a super demanding job, but it was at night, and I was taking care of my son during the day. And then today, I got up at 6:30 to ride my bike. I drove from the valley to Santa Monica in traffic. I worked for 11 hours, and then I drove from Santa Monica to Hollywood to do this podcast, to promote my book to a certain extent. I mean, one, I'm a fan of this show, and I love podcasts, and I love talking about myself. But also it's so people will be like, who is this guy? What's this book he's nervously talking about that he's excited about? So, I mean, I would wonder if in the future I have one thing that I'm laser focused on, or if I'm still doing a million things at once.
Yeah. I think I love that answer. It's cool to speak for a second to the fact that, having written 16 screenplays in this time while you also raise a kid and begin a career as a story producer, you must have been breaking your back. But you don't also complain about it or begrudge it.
I mean, yeah, when you say like that, it's like it all adds up. But to me, the day-to-day, it's just like doing things that are important to me.
That's very cool. Okay, so 5 years from now, what's your hope for where you're at?
Well, I'm wondering if I'm going to continue on the parallel life.
Yeah, maybe. So you could give your 5 years from now in reality TV and your 5 years from now as a screenwriter of fiction.
I mean, in 5 years, on the one hand, I'll maybe be a supervising producer in the reality realm. If I'm a story producer in 5 years, that's still great. I'm surprised to already be a story producer, but I'm doing okay at it, and I keep getting hired to a certain extent. So on the one hand, that'd be great. In 5 years, I hope to have at least one more young adult novel out. And I'm probably going to have written 10 more screenplays in 5 years. At least 5, probably. 5 more that you've never heard of.
And if you, being not humble for a second, what do you really hope has happened to one of your screenplays?
In 5 years? I mean, with Happenstances, it could be an independent Napoleon Dynamite type thing. Or, I mean, I have the ideas about it to make it a King of the Hill animated show. Yellow County could be the new Arlen, Texas. There's enough characters to populate this county. This book takes place at the pool. It dips out a little bit to go other places, but it mainly takes place at the pool. But in my universe that I would like to create, the pool is a small section of the town that people go to during the summer. And so this book, it's a short novel. It could be a movie. It could be one episode of an animated series. And I could do seasons of this thing. So I'd love to be able to play in the Yellow County world. But that said, that's not my only idea. I have a ton of stories that I want to tell.
If something that happens to you is that someday you do have a movie made, and it's a about as successful as like Napoleon Dynamite was. Do you think, and as beloved as that movie was, but you just get that one movie. Do you think you could die happy?
Like career-wise?
Yeah.
Because to me, career isn't my whole life.
So tell me about that.
I mean, in how many years? 30 years?
Yeah.
In 30 years, I'll have like a 34-year-old son and a 30-year-old son. And that'll be, I mean,
Or
they'll
daughter.
be, oh, that's scary. But yeah, that's true. We're about to find out the sex in a week and a half. And yeah, nervous about that. It'll be awesome either way. So in 30 years, I'll have a kid my age. I'm almost 30. What is their life going to be like? So if I have one successful movie, like, cool, that's awesome. I'll have 2 hopefully successful kids.
And that's the thing you care about having more.
Yeah, I do, honestly. The other, everything, to me, I don't expect a ton out of most anything. So good, anything good is always just gravy. Well, except I don't like gravy. So everything good is just I don't like frosting either. I don't like any of the traditional rich, delicious things. Everything else is just like other good stuff. The worst analogy ever.
Yeah.
Let's just say gravy. Everything else on top of that is just gravy.
That's great. So, if you could record a message now from let's record a message for your kids at 30 and 34. What would that message be from their dad at the same age?
Wow. If they have been able to create I hope that they are able to create a family like I am in the midst of creating currently. And if it's going to take you a couple more years, that's fine. Enjoy your 20s and travel and stuff. Do the damn thing.
That's great. I loved talking to you. This was really, really fun.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for doing it.
Yeah, man.
It was a blast. Thanks for coming over.
Pete out.
Oh, in every favorite song I wrote in a cluttered room with the ceiling low. So if I stand too straight or I stand too tall, I bump my head and forget it all.
So, thank you for listening to my interview with the inspiring Peter Harmon. I love the idea of Peter's kids listening to that message he left for them years and years from now. I think that's going to be very cool. If you want to learn more about Peter, you can go to his website, peterlharmon.com. That's also a good place to go if you want to buy Peter's book and you're looking for a link to it. Again, I hope you'll consider subscribing to On the Cusp, and if you rate or review us on iTunes, I promise that even though you won't be able to see me doing this, I will be doing little cartwheels around my room and jumping for joy. Special thanks to Casey Trila and the band Hi-Ho Silvero for all the music in this episode, to my sound editor Joe Burge, and to my producer Cece I Can Has Get Gems Pierce. This has been On the Cusp.
Beanie, 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 beanie. Da-doom, doom, da-doom. That's your outro music.